Welcome back, everyone, to our podcast. I'm Chris De Santana, and that's Melanie Thorley. We're here from MJT Law.
We are.
And I thought I'd start this week's podcast with a bit of a trip down memory lane.
Okay.
In about a month's time, one of my very best mates, he's also about to become a lawyer. He can join the absolutely massive group of us who every year become a lawyer. And he's asked me to move his a mission. So for everyone out there, when you become a lawyer, it's a ceremony.
Yeah, it's very, very pompous.
If you can, pompous.
I really like it, but there's a lot of protocol involved.
A lot of protocol.
A lot of protocol.
But essentially, you need a lawyer to move you into the admission, so allow you into the club, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, it's like having somebody vouch for you.
Yeah. And it's seen as, well, I personally think it's a bit of a privilege to move someone else's admission, because they've obviously thought of you as a significant enough person in their lives to do so. So I was more than happy to do it. In fact, I'm actually quite excited to do it. But I thought I'd speak to you about it as go down memory lane. How was your admission?
My admission was really interesting, actually. I got admitted 2009, 2010, so a while ago now. And I had now Justice Darrington move me, which was very exciting at the time. And she was a little bit of a figure for me. And she's a figure in the legal industry here in Australia as well, which was, great for me, I guess. But really it was a personal thing for me. And I remember being very, very nervous. And there was lots and lots of protocol. So we had it in the old courts. The courts no longer exist anymore. They took the building down. They've moved it to a completely different place. And it was in the Banco courts. And everyone turned up. Everyone was dressed in suits, like going to a wedding.
Yeah.
And we were all in suits, of course. And one of the things that I remember very clearly is we had to say something in the middle of all this ceremony.
Yeah.
You'd remember this actually more recently than me.
Yes.
And everybody says it at a different speed.
Yeah, so I think you're referring to everyone has all the new laws. Yeah, they have to come up and they have to say a pledge.
It's like a declaration of sorts.
What makes it even more disjointed, because you're right, everyone reads, because you sort of get the pledge.
You get the piece of paper and everyone reads it out.
But what I remember being problematic was you had a pledge which was religious.
That's right.
And then you had a pledge that wasn't.
That's right.
But all 20 of you say it at the same time, but you're saying different.
And you say your name and everything.
Yeah.
So you're trying to not listen to everybody else.
It sounds terrible. I haven't actually been in the sort of gallery for one yet, but I can only assume it sounds just like a muffle.
It is a bit weird, but I recall having to stand up and, Justice Darrington moved me, and the three justices sat there and they kind of did this nod kind of situation. It was so exciting though, because it's the end of a process in many ways. And if you're doing a dual degree, which I don't think you did either, law school takes 5.5 years. Then you do a year of postgrad, and then you get admitted. So this is a long process.
If you think about it, it's a culmination of for me it was 18 years of studying. I mean, from the very time you start school, it's been 18 years of learning up until that point, and I think it's one of the only times that I have felt a genuine feeling of pride.
Oh, it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. I loved going in, and because in law in Queensland, I'm not sure anywhere else, of course, because I was only admitted here in Queensland, you actually sign a book. You got a physical signature.
Or a number of books. With every single Queensland lawyer that has ever happened.
And it's called the Roll of Lawyers, and you sign the Roll of Lawyers physically.
And do you think, if you become a bad lawyer and
does it get struck off?
Yeah, when they say you are struck out, do they actually strike you out?
I'd love to find out about it. Anybody knows
Anyone
that?
Who has seen the books? Because that would be embarrassing.
That's horrifying. I can't imagine how horrifying that would be, to be honest, because it's so public. I don't know. I don't know. This sounds really mean.
No, but it does sound mean. But I mean, I'm excited. I know my admission I had a great time. I remember that my mover was like third last.
Oh my God, I got to move somebody, and I think it was my second year of being a lawyer, and law is all about hierarchy, guys, and you sit in range of what your GPA is, so everybody knows. Yeah. Everybody knows whether you're a really good student or a really terrible student.
No, which they don't tell you that in uni. They don't tell you that. There will become a time where they will put you in order of your GPA.
No, they don't tell you at the last moment that you become a lawyer. There's a humiliation that happens. Yes. They don't say that, no. But they also do it to you as a mover. So as in my second year, so I hadn't been unrestricted yet, I was last on the list. So there was all these people standing up, and I was last. And the terrible thing about this is you don't go up based on your GPA. You stand up and do your nod based on the seniority of your mover.
Yeah. So if you have,
you could have a great GPA.
If say you've got a high court judge as your mover, then you go first.
That's right.
Unless someone has somehow trumped you and got a more experienced.
I have no idea.
I don't know if that's ever happened.
The silts normally take the.
They just walk straight to the front.
Yeah, they do.
But I've said to my mate that we will be going last.
Do you think you're going to be proper last?
I think we'll be dead last.
Okay.
I will be extremely surprised if I'm not dead last.
So not because it seems like a real humiliation. It isn't really, but it is really interesting, isn't it? That we
I know.
Everyone kind of we're down there at the end. Hello.
I have no issues with going last.
I think it's a lot of fun on the day. I loved moving somebody. It's quite nervy because you are the one that presents this person.
Yeah.
So it's actually a really big deal.
In there, so you don't want to stuff it up.
No, you don't want to stuff it up. You want them to get the nod.
And one thing that I found really sweet, I don't know if it happened in yours, was people who were doing it for family members. So we had a father moving his daughter. We had a wife moving her husband, which was interesting. Brother, sister.
Pity the families have more than one lawyer in it.
Imagine a couple. I mean, they.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So,
look, it's really interesting. There was somebody that didn't get the nod in my group.
Really? Wow.
I wouldn't have turned up, honestly.
No, because they get told beforehand. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there was someone there who didn't get the nod.
Well, hopefully they eventually got through. I
suspect it was the next admissions, but I'm not going to name names and embarrass people, but certainly, there was a person there that didn't get the nod.
And they don't do that anymore, by the way. They
No.
No,
and that's true humiliation, by the way, guys.
For this reason, that's crazy stuff. But what happens now is you sort of get the court list, and you've got blocks of 20. So, like on the day, there was 5 ceremonies, each had 20. And
oh my goodness! Okay, there was only one ceremony when I was doing mine.
But right at the end, you get all these single ones where they have their own time. And they're all the ones who have to actually give evidence and...
There is a massive protocol in this, guys, because what you have to do is a whole pile of stuff first before you can get into the admissions ceremony. And one of them is, part of it is receiving the certificate of... The Queensland Law Society gives
a
recommendation from the Queensland Law Society. And that's a horrifying experience as well, because you have to disclose all your legal infractions, all the bad stuff that you've done as a teenager. It all just goes
so
up
everything
there.
Gets in there. Traffic fines.
Everything. Jaywalking.
Spur debts. Whether you receive Centrelink.
It's just,
the full thing.
Yeah, it's endless, right? So you get this, the certificate of recommendation. So if you don't get the certificate of recommendation, you've got a very shaky chance of getting the nod later. But I think what happened in this particular case is the person didn't get their certificate of recommendation, but hoped nevertheless they would still receive the nod. And they didn't receive the nod.
So, you know how the judges usually turn to each other and they kind of say yes? Do they just turn and say no?
Honestly, I can't remember. It was so horrifying.
That poor person.
I think he already knew it was happening.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think because the mover was very good at presenting the material, and it could have been that they said not today but next time. I think there was something about it. It was a while ago, guys. So if I've got all my facts wrong,
then I'm sure we can.
But I just recall it was a very, very uncomfortable situation, and all of us wanted just to hide. Everyone just wanted to disappear and just let this guy, blend into the background, because it's just so horrifying. But yeah, it was a lot of fun on the day.
Yeah,
nice
fun. I'm certainly looking forward to it.
So it's in a month's time?
Yeah, about a month's time.
Ooh,
So,
I like it.
That'll be good. I'm looking forward to. But what's happening what's what you think about?
Well, actually, I was looking at this Uber thing.
Yes, the UK.
The UK Uber thing. This is.
He got Lawyer of the Month or something, like a worldwide. the lawyer. I just saw it this morning. The lawyer who got it. He had won.
He's probably doing it for free. So.
Yeah. So.
It went all the way up. So, for years now, since 2016, there's been this kind of concept: are Uber drivers employees or are they contractors? Now, the question has been asked and answered several times in Australia already, but it went all the way to the
To the English Court.
To the English Court of Appeal. So we've got 7 justices. Yeah. I really like this because, of course, it's the Court of Appeal, so we've got Lord Reid.
Yes,
and we've got
all lords.
Lady Ardern, and it's actually very, very, very proper.
Upright, yeah.
Yeah, and the question that was on that they had to answer was this person a worker? So it's a different kind of threshold stuff, because we're talking about the English courts and not the Australian ones.
Not just an employee, they're a worker.
And they had to decide whether they were a definition of worker under the Employment Rights Act. And the definition of a worker is whereby the individual undertakes to do or perform personally any work or services for another party to the contract whose status is not by virtue of the contract of that of a client or customer or any profession or business undertaking carried on by an individual. I mean, I don't know who wrote that to begin with, because that's just gobbledygook in many ways. But it's kind of interesting. And the answer was they're an employee. They're a worker under the Act. And they made these 5 points. The judgment emphasises 5 aspects. And I think this is fascinating. So first, where a ride is booked through the Uber app, it is Uber that sets the fares, and the driver is not permitted to charge any more.
Right, that's true.
So, control over how much money they're about to receive.
Yeah. You can see why that wouldn't be a contract.
Second, the contract terms on which drivers perform their services are imposed by Uber, and the drivers have no say in them. So this is that balance of power. Who has, contracts are normally drafted by employees, whereas contractors can set their own contract terms. Third, once the driver has logged on to the Uber app, the driver's choice about whether to accept the rides is constrained by Uber. So, this is one way with which this is done is by monitoring the driver's rate of acceptance and cancellation of trip.
Okay, I actually didn't know that.
I actually didn't know. I've never been an Uber driver, but I understand that there's a lot of rules around this. 4, Uber also exercises significant control over the way in which the drivers deliver their services. And when you think about that, it's probably absolutely true, because as a Uber passenger, I can complain about the speeding, cutting people off. I can complain about which way they're driving to drop me off. There's lots of things that I can do that if they don't follow the Uber's map, it becomes problematic, right?
You can complain about them.
So I can see that. And 5, a 5th significant factor is that Uber restricts communications between the passenger and driver to the minimum necessary to perform the particular trip, and takes active steps to prevent drivers from establishing any relationship with the passenger capable of extending beyond the individual ride.
Well, I should know they did that. I didn't know they restricted that. I suppose it's true.
So what does that mean? So, there's quite often I have an Uber driver and I'm thinking, oh, look, I'm going to need to get picked up in 2 hours. Do you want to come back? But I know that I can't do that.
Yeah, they're always very no, I can't.
But I guess if you're a contractor, you can pick and choose your rides, right? Yeah, I'll come back for you, no worries. So it's like a restraint of trade in many ways. That's not to say there are not restraints of trade in contracts as a contractor. So I'm just kind of interested if we had the same level. I mean, this has been tested and answered a number of times.
So we're not breaking new ground here, but
I don't know.
Well, I've actually had a little bit of notice to this particular question, and as a bit of a law nerd as I am, I was watching the House of Reps on the day that this got published, and the question went to the Industrial Relations Minister, who, as you know, there is a bill which may overhaul the whole system.
Well, I think it's been passed now.
It's been passed to the Senate.
Yeah.
So the question went to him is, in light of this new judgment, is there any kind of appetite to change the legislation to allow, I think they were referred to them as...
gig workers?
Yeah, gig workers.
Is that what they call them these days?
Yeah, the gig workers.
The gig economy, right?
The gig economy.
Yeah. Pulling them into the employment arena.
One, he refers to the fact that it's been tested in courts before, which says that he's a contractor. But he also made the note that the thing that case failed to take into account was that almost all Uber drivers and anyone in the gig economy works across multiple platforms. They're
Uber driver, they're Ola,
they're everything.
Yeah.
Right? And that unlike someone who works at Coles, Macca's, anywhere, when you are working at Coles, you can't also work at Macca's. Like physically you can't.
Yes, ready,
right?
willing and able is the problem here.
Whereas someone who works as an Uber driver happily can, and they do. But there's evidence to say that they do.
I like that.
Which gives them an advantage that they can't possibly do if they were an employee. So one, he said, they either they're essentially they get a benefit that shouldn't really be there to them, the ability to both collect a wage and then also work at multiple places at once, which no one else can do. Or they then draft some legislation, which then means they can't work at multiple, which is actually bad for them because they don't want that.
Well, they're not going to make enough money.
They won't make enough money.
Isn't there a chap at the moment doing this with one of the food delivery companies?
I haven't personally seen, but it would essentially be the same problem.
It is the same issue, right? If you're doing it exclusively, then you can see how there might be a scope for it. But the trouble is, the question is either answered on an individual basis or it's answered on a collective one.
And he also said as well, he says, making legislation here would be almost impossible because every single one of their circumstances is different. There's no real kind of consistency here.
This is true. I think turning Uber drivers or Ola drivers or whoever it is into employees is going to create a complexity that was never there for taxi drivers as well. Taxi drivers aren't employees. So why are we expecting Uber drivers to be?
I just can't see it. I actually don't think there's appetite. I don't think anyone's actually calling for it. I don't think the drivers want it.
Well, the unions want it.
On behalf of who?
I'm pretty sure the unions are looking at this as something that they want, because when you think about who the unions are working for, they're working for the everyday guy. If they can get better outcomes for workers, pulling Uber drivers into a worker will mean that those Uber drivers potentially are earning something that they wouldn't have normally earned, like super. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I mean, I could be wrong. The unions might not care about this, but I thought they did.
But if they did, though, it's kind of a situation where if that happens, one, they lose all their flexibility to come, which is one of the reasons why they pick it.
Well, a lot of Uber drivers have other jobs.
Yeah. The reason they pick it is to be flexible. They want to be able to work in multiple platforms.
It's the flexibility that I think gives them the edge as contractors here in Australia.
And also, if they no longer have flexibility, Uber as a business becomes shaky financially.
Yeah, it's not viable, is it?
And then before you know it, there's no Uber, there's no job for them. So I don't think anyone's actually realistically should be searching for it. I think it's a lose-lose situation.
When was the last time we took a taxi?
It's been a while. It's been a really long time.
I haven't taken a taxi for years. Is Is it an app? Can you do it similar to Uber?
I just think they've lost the market. I wouldn't even be able to tell you because I just don't.
Because the problem I have with taxis is I jump into a taxi and no one's seen it. I don't know who the taxi driver is. Nobody takes the taxi numbers. I don't care. I know that they're visual, but no one's taking photos of it or anything. Right. You can't watch on an app or anything where the taxi guy is going, and there's little protections. It was very easy to find that Uber driver who had inappropriately dealt with that woman because they saw it was there. It was obvious. It became proof. But taxi drivers, I just don't have the same level of confidence. And not that all taxi drivers are, out there to hurt anyone. I'm not saying that. As a passenger, I feel that I have far more protections in an Uber car than I do in a taxi. So it is just the easy choice for me. I'm not trying to criminalise taxi drivers because there's no reason to.
No.
But I just find it. I don't have to do anything else to be more protected.
Yeah,
whereas if I jump into a taxi, there are more things I have to do to remain protected.
There's actually just no need.
I just don't know how it works anymore.
I
mean, there are taxi ranks, there are taxi lines, there are people that get in taxis.
But it's so easy to get your own Uber now. Like, you can just walk around the street and just order one. And
yeah, that's true. But what about, 2 o'clock in the morning at Fortitude Valley?
Still fine.
Is that right?
Because it's just, honestly, it's an easy sort of supply and demand. There is a demand for them at that hour. People will come. There's money to be made.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Well, I don't think they should be employees.
No,
I think the gig economy is such that we've got this is new. This is a space outside. This is one of these issues where law hasn't caught up with today's stuff.
Yeah.
Right? The gig economy is here. It is here to stay. It is not wrong. It could be better regulated. I understand.
Probably, yeah.
But just because it's new and we're a bit uncomfortable with it doesn't make it wrong. So I'd be more interested in working with the gig economy instead of trying to get rid of it, because there's lots of them, right? We've got all the Ubers and all the food ones, but then we've got all these other ones where people just sort of turn up and do something in your house.
Yeah, like
right?
everyone is doing a bit of a side hustle.
Yeah.
Besides that, this is obviously a massive headache, I imagine, for the ATO. Now that every man and his dog is doing cash businesses on the side.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of people sort of, they're making bracelets and they're...
But also, you call someone up and say, hey, can you mow my lawns?
Yeah.
And they go, sure, I'll do it for $30 and off you go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, I think it's a win everywhere. I think
we need to learn better how to deal with it from a legal perspective. But I think that, it's like self-driving cars. I was watching an advertisement the other day where Hyundai has got a car where you can click something and it will drive itself out of the car park. And I'm like...
It's your own, valet. It'll just come...
Yeah, it'll come to you. It's bloody brilliant. But and there was some wording at the bottom of the advertisement saying Western Australia does not allow cars to be driven without a driver in the driver's seat or something like that. So, but it talks... So talking about driverless cars, right? There's a whole range of stuff that one can happen, from the self-parking when you're sitting in it, you put your hands up and you watch it park, and very exciting, to starting off with the video cameras in the back and and these beeps and all this stuff. So they're all, you've got the low end of the wedge there with all the beeping and the it's getting close, to driving out of your car park.
The whole driverless... Here's a question for you. When they eventually come, I think the day will come when at least some aspects of driving becomes automated. When they hit something, inevitably, who's picking up the bill?
I don't know, but I love the idea of driverless cars. I think that will happen so less often that, yeah, you're right. But then when we're thinking about this sort of autonomy, it's a if you or if me situation. Because the next thing is, do you have a driverless car that absolutely protects the driver and the passengers?
Oh, we're talking about the ethical dilemmas here about who it runs over.
Or absolutely protects the person on the outside of the car.
Yeah, and this might actually be a bit of a continual problem for? Because there's no right answer to this.
There is no right answer to this. But guys, what we might do is pick that up another day when we know a little bit more about it, because I find it a really exciting topic.
I think we'll spend a bit of time on
and
that.
We'll pick that up in a few weeks' time. In the meantime, hope you have a lovely afternoon, evening, day, weekend, and we'll talk to you again.
All right, see ya.
See you later.